Before the roaring engines, before the glare of neon and the clatter of trains, there was a London made of whispers and warmth. A city of stone and timber, of echoing footsteps and flickering lanterns. Medieval London, a place not just of kings and cathedrals, but of markets that breathed with spice and smoke, of river songs drifting through the mist, of children laughing through crooked alleys, and monks humming prayers behind ivy-covered walls. It was a London built slowly, by hand, by candlelight, by faith. Beautiful, not because it was perfect, but because it was alive. Here the beauty is in the small things. The way morning light touches a stained glass window, the scent of bread rising from a hidden oven, a single bell tolling across the rooftops. This London asks nothing of you. It simply waits, quiet, patient, ready to show you its soul. So lie back, close your eyes, and walk with me now through a city that sleeps beneath your dreams. A city called London. Before the world grew loud, the night is quiet. London waits beneath a twilight sky, the sun slipping just beyond the rooftops. You step into the past, a past of timber, of stone, of gentle winds brushing linen curtains in crooked windows. The air is cool, but not cold. It carries the faint scent of wood smoke and river water. Your feet find a cobbled path, uneven stones worn smooth by centuries of footsteps. Each one holds the memory of markets, weddings, whispers, and rain. The houses that rise along this lane seem to lean inward, their upper floors stretching out over the street like reaching arms. These are timber-framed homes, their blackened beams bold against whitewashed plaster, their windows small and paned with glass that wavers ever so slightly in the moonlight. You can almost hear the creak of the wood settling for the night. Inside one of the houses, a candle burns behind a thin curtain. Its light dances on the wall outside like a shadow play, soft and golden. Above, the rooftops stretch unevenly toward the sky, gabled, steep, and shingled with slate, as if the buildings are whispering stories to the stars. A cat moves silently across a wooden ledge, then curls into sleep beneath a window box of dried lavender. Somewhere in the distance, a bell tolls the hour, slow, deep, resonant. The lane twists. It always does. Straight lines have no place here. Every turn is a secret. Every alley is an invitation to wonder. You walk on, slowly, gently. The stones shift beneath your feet, but not unkindly. You are not alone, though no one walks beside you. This city is old, older than memory, older than reason, and it watches you with quiet eyes. There is no danger, no rush, no voice above a whisper. You walk past a doorway framed in oak. The wood so aged it has turned silver in places. Above it hangs a small iron sign, a carving of a lion, its mane curling like leaves. The house leans slightly, as if listening to the street. Everything here leans. Nothing is perfect, but everything is beautiful. You come to a well, round, stone, and moss-covered. The water within is still, reflecting a single cloud above. And beyond it, a wall, ancient, guarding something grand. You follow its curve with your eyes, then with your feet, listening as the cobbles continue to whisper beneath you. The timber-framed homes begin to thin, now, and something greater looms ahead. Tall, proud, made not of wood, but of cold, grey stone. A cathedral. You draw closer, slowly, as the evening turns to night, and the great stones begin to glow. This is where you will wander next. But not just yet. You stop. You breathe. And the city breathes with you. The cathedral stands before you now. Massive. Silent. Built not in a decade, but in devotion. Stone by stone, hand by hand, prayer by prayer. Its walls rise like cliffs into the sky, every block chiseled, every edge touched by time. Moonlight drapes across its facade like a silver cloth, and the stained glass windows shimmer in blues and reds and golds. Though the hour is late, one door is open, not wide, just enough to welcome the quiet-hearted. You step inside. The first thing you notice is the air cool, still, fragrant with melted wax and centuries of incense. The stone underfoot is smooth, worn down by pilgrims and barefoot monks. The great nave stretches out before you, and above, the ceiling arches like the inside of a ship turned upside down, a vessel for the soul. Your footsteps echo gently, You do not speak. There is no need. This place speaks for itself. Not in words, but in light. The windows rise like floating tapestries, each panel a story in colored glass. Saints, angels, kings, flowers, vines, stars. In the moonlight, their images seem to shift, glowing from within, like they've held fire in their hearts all this time. A single candle flickers on the altar, its flame tall and slender. You sit on a wooden pew, and it creaks softly beneath you. Somewhere, beyond a wall, you hear a monk's footfall. Just one. A hush. Then the echo fades, like a sigh into velvet. The great arches above seem to breathe. Every inch of stone in this place has been touched by reverence. You look toward the transept, the smaller chapel within the chapel. There, a statue of the Virgin stands with her head tilted slightly, carved in a time, before your parents' time, before almost anyone's time. Her expression is peaceful, timeless. A bird, maybe a night dove, coos softly in the rafters. No bells toll, no sermons call, just silence, sacred silence, and breath, and stillness. You stay a while. No one rushes you. Even time seems to pause here, unsure of its own passing. The candle on the altar trembles once, then holds steady again. You rise quietly, leaving the pew exactly as it was, and step outside, into the embrace of night once more. Behind you, the great cathedral watches like a sentinel. Ahead, the street curves again, as all London streets do. You follow it. Past stone arches, into a narrow lane, and as you walk, a new sound joins your journey. The distant hum of the city wall, still far off, but waiting. The city curves again. You follow the cobblestone as it gently slopes downward, the moonlight brushing your path in patches through swaying rooftops. Ahead, you begin to see it, the stone wall. Massive, ancient, not like the polished marble of kings, but the weathered stone of memory. It stands not to impress, but to endure. Moss grows in its crevices. Ivy climbs where the mortar has loosened. It has seen everything, the laughter of children, the cry of merchants, the silence after snowfall, and yet it still stands. You approach it slowly. The lantern you carry casts a dim glow that dances across its surface. The wall breathes cool air. It smells of lichen, dust, and time. Up ahead, a watchtower rises into the night sky. Its shape is simple, round, sturdy, enduring. A narrow slit of a window flickers with firelight. Inside, a figure shifts. A guard, perhaps, or simply a keeper of the flame. He does not call out. The city is quiet tonight. You walk beside the wall, your hand gently brushing its surface. The stone is cool and uneven, and your fingers trail along grooves where once arrows were sharpened or names were carved. A single gate comes into view, tall, wooden, braced with iron bands, its arch framed in smooth stone blocks. Overhead, a crest is carved, too worn now to make out, but once proud. The gate is shut, not with hostility, just with patience. Gates are meant to open, but only when the time is right. You stand beneath it and listen. Beyond, you imagine open fields, trees rustling in the wind, perhaps a fox darting beneath a hedge. But here within, the city cradles you. The wall behind you, the world ahead. You follow the curve once more, where the path hugs the base of the wall. Small stones click beneath your boots. Somewhere above, a weather vane squeaks gently as the wind shifts. You pass another tower, this one empty, just shadows inside. And near its base, a stair. It climbs slowly, worn by use, its center dipped like a spoon from the passing of countless feet. You begin to climb, step by step, quiet, calm. At the top, the city reveals itself to you. Rooftops shimmer like soft teeth. Smoke curls upward like ribbon, and the Thames, dark and silver, slices the night like a sleeping serpent. You rest your hands on the edge of the stone tower. You breathe. The wall has held you, and now it lets you go. Slowly, you descend the steps again. The gate is behind you now. The winding lanes call again. This time, they lead somewhere older still, not grand, but intimate. A place of twisting corridors and narrow passageways, where the city breathes not in great halls, but in alleys. The wide lanes are behind you now. Before you lies something quieter, closer, more tangled. A narrow way curves to the left, so tight that the buildings on either side almost kiss in the middle. You follow it. The walls rise high around you. Timber above, stone below. Their closeness is not confining, it's comforting. Like being wrapped in the folds of a sleeping cloak. The alley twists again. And again. No part of it is straight. It loops, coils, breathes. You run your hand along the wood as you pass. Rough, splintered in places, but warm with age. Overhead, wooden beams stretch from one building to another, bracing like the arms of old trees. From them hang small woven lanterns, dim but steady, their light swaying with the evening breeze. The air smells of stone and smoke, but also something sweet, maybe herbs from a nearby window box, or the last apples in a cellar crate. You pass an open doorway. A woman inside places a kettle on the hearth. She does not see you, but her motion is gentle, precise. On the windowsill beside her, a sprig of thyme, a pair of boots, a cat, sleeping curled like a comma. The alley bends again, this time around an outcrop of stone, perhaps part of an older wall, left untouched for centuries. You duck beneath a crooked wooden sign. It creaks overhead. The wood beneath your feet is uneven now. A few planks here where the stones had worn away, soft with moss. A rat skitters past, but not with menace, just doing its work. This part of London is full of life, but not the loud kind. The quiet kind. The alley splits ahead. Two paths like the fork of a river. One leads toward a glowing square, soft music rising from it. The other disappears beneath an archway carved from stone, its top lined with ivy. You choose the arch. It welcomes you. Inside, a staircase spirals downward, shallow and slow, meant not for speed, but for curiosity. Each step echoes gently. You reach the bottom, where the walls widen slightly, revealing a tiny square courtyard enclosed by buildings. In its center, a fountain. Not large, just a stone basin, round, with a carved lion's head. Water trickles from its mouth, the softest sound, steady and slow. A bench sits nearby. You rest there for a moment. You listen. To the fountain. To a shutter creaking in the wind. To the heartbeat of a city hiding in plain sight. You stay until the breeze begins to stir again, nudging you gently forward. You rise. Step past the fountain. And follow a winding path upward once more, toward towers. Maybe. Or rooftops. Or something yet unseen. Whatever it is, the city is ready to show it to you. Slowly. Gently. Like a story whispered in your ear. The night deepens, and the stars glimmer with ancient steadiness above medieval London. Along a quiet lane, where the cobblestones shimmer slightly with the dew of midnight air, a single light glows faintly behind a narrow upper window. It belongs to a house with steep eaves and dark timbered walls, its beams blackened by time, its edges softened by ivy and years of wind. Above this lane, a tall stone tower rises. It is not part of a castle, but rather one of the city's forgotten watchtowers, a relic from a time when London was smaller, tighter, wrapped in a cloak of necessity and defense. Now the tower watches in silence. Its stones are cold and moss-covered, yet they wear that silence proudly. Inside, a narrow spiral staircase curls like a shell, each step smooth where feet once trod, knights perhaps, or guards with lanterns, long extinguished. The tower overlooks the very heart of the city. Below it, the rooftops of London are a quilt of lead and slate and thatch, some patched, some pristine, all glowing silver in the moonlight. You float over them, gently, like the mist. And everywhere you drift, the architecture tells stories, without saying a word. There's a small arched bridge, made entirely of stone, its sides worn smooth by hands that once leaned there to watch the river, or to whisper secrets beneath the cover of twilight. There's an old bakery, its chimney long unused, its windows boarded gently, a building asleep in every sense. The flour has long since settled, but the scent of bread feels like it still lingers. And further still, a lane too narrow for anything but foot traffic, where the houses lean so close together, their upper floors nearly touch. Here, a lantern swings softly. Here, it is always dusk. The buildings hum with memory, of children chasing hoops, of merchants wheeling wooden carts, of laughter echoing off stone. Even the city's smallest corners were once carved with care. Wooden beams, scalloped and etched. Stone windowsills, wide enough to hold a candle or a curious cat. Iron hinges, hand-forged, strong enough to last 100 winters. As you move past them all, past the sleeping inns and crooked gables, the faded doorways and arched stone halls, you arrive at a gate. An ancient city gate. It no longer serves its original purpose, for the walls it once secured have crumbled or been built over, but the gate remains, dignified, and still. It is framed by towers on each side, the stones old and noble. There are carvings here too, dragons perhaps, lions, coats of arms and shields. And overhead, the great arch is covered in creeping vines. The green makes no sound, but it grows still, year after year. Inside the archway there is a shadow, not ominous, just quiet. It's the kind of darkness that belongs to cathedrals and caves, ancient, sacred, almost warm in its depth. As you pass through, the sound of the city fades even more. Just the distant cry of an owl, the brush of wind against old shutters, and the rhythmic clink of a blacksmith, far off and fading. This city, this beautiful, strange, sleeping city, breathes gently beneath you, and the stones beneath your feet hold the memory of every soul who ever passed this way. Their footsteps join yours, quiet, steady, forgotten, and never lost. Tonight, they lead you to peace, and in the silence of towers and gables, you drift ever closer to rest. The stars hovered, still and vast, over the old city. High above the rooftops, on a turret carved of old sandstone, a watchman stood. His lantern glowed faintly beside him, a flicker against the immensity of the sky. Below, the breath of London slowed like a creature settling to sleep. Beneath his feet, the stones of the wall still held the heat of the day. They had watched generations pass. Horse hooves, cart wheels, boot soles, all had touched these paths. The stones remembered. In the distance, the bridge arched gracefully over the Thames, its gate towers standing as silent sentinels. Each archway bore ironwork details, patterns shaped like vines and twisted knots, worked lovingly by hands long gone. Within the city walls, winding alleys spiraled gently between homes. From up here, the rooftops formed a sea of soft angles, gabled, sloped and thatched. Chimneys leaned like old friends whispering secrets. Dormer windows blinked like sleepy eyes. The cathedral's spire pierced the sky to the west, still aglow from the moonlight. Its shadow spilled across the surrounding cloisters, where not even a leaf stirred. The bell tower was silent now. No more calls for prayer tonight, just stillness. The watchman leaned against the battlement, listening to the hush that only deep night brings. Somewhere below, a dog barked once. A door creaked, then all was still again. He looked to the city gate, massive oak, iron-braced, shut tight for the night. Beyond it, the countryside slept too. Hedgerows swaying gently under the breeze, owls gliding like ghosts through trees. The walls around the city felt almost alive. Their presence was not merely protective, but sacred. These stones had borne fire, rain, frost, war, and still they stood, wrapped now in ivy and moss, sheltering dreams. Lanterns flickered one by one in the guardhouse below. A new shift was coming. Quiet footsteps, a nod, the changing of the watch. As he stepped down the spiral stair, his hand brushed the stone, smooth where many had touched it before. The spiral wound lower and lower, finally opening into a narrow corridor of arches. Outside again, the streets shimmered with dew. The houses, timber and plaster, all leaned into each other like companions. Their eaves met above the lanes like clasped fingers. Rain gutters dripped softly. Carved beams caught silver threads of moonlight. Even in sleep, the city was beautiful. Its structures were not grand in the way of empires, but they were deeply human, built by hands that cared. Walls that knew laughter and loss, hearths that still held the smell of wood smoke and bread. A final glance at the city from the watchtower's gate, the lantern dimmed, and as the watchman walked into the shadows, the stones behind him remained, silent and patient, waiting for morning. The city was not awake yet. It rested beneath a shroud of silver mist that had risen from the river, like breath from a slumbering beast. The Thames, ancient and quiet, flowed slowly through the heart of London. smooth as glass in the pale morning hush. Mist coiled gently between the stone piers of London Bridge, wrapping its arms around the timber houses that clung to the sides of the structure. Each window, dark and still, seemed to blink slowly, adjusting to the soft light rising over the horizon. A barge drifted silently under the arches, its movement so calm that the water barely stirred. Only the ripple of its passing told of life. Somewhere far off, a gull called once, a lonely sound, lost quickly in the thick air. Above the river, the towers of the city softened into ghostly shapes, their outlines blurred as if the mist was painting with charcoal and breath. The cathedral spire reached toward the heavens, faint and holy, like a thought barely spoken. On the banks, small shops stood asleep. Their wooden shutters were still drawn tight, and their signs, wrought iron, creaking in the damp breeze, swung lazily on old hinges. A baker's emblem, a candlemaker's flame, a symbol of a bell, all hung like forgotten memories. Cobblestones glistened beneath the moisture, and every hoofprint from the day before was softened by the mist's gentle kiss. A single set of footprints, likely a watchman finishing his shift, stretched toward a narrow alley, then vanished into fog. In one small home, tucked not far from the edge of the river, a boy stirred beneath a wool blanket. The candle beside his bed had long burned out, leaving only a puddle of wax in the holder, but the warmth of the room lingered, not from fire, but from dreams. The walls of the house, timber, aged with time, sighed as the cool damp crept through the cracks. A drop of water tapped from the roof beam, quiet as a heartbeat. The boy didn't stir again. Not yet. Outside, the world still waited. Even the animals were slow to rise. Horses in the stables stood quiet, their breath visible in the air. Pigeons cooed softly beneath eaves, shifting feathers to stay warm. Cats slinked silently along windowsills, watching the fog like it was an old friend. No bells rang, no carts rattled, only the whisper of the mist and the distant voice of the river. And so the city, wrapped in damp silence, dreamed on, as if it remembered a time before it ever was. The mist gave way to something even softer. Rain. It began without warning. No thunder, no gust, just the lightest hush as droplets began to fall from the low grey sky. They touched the rooftops first, those steep, timbered structures, and made a quiet music of their own. Tick, tick, tap, tap. A lullaby composed only for this old city. The rooftops wore it like a memory, shingles that had seen war, fire, and frost, now welcomed rain as an old friend, and below them, the beams of 1,000 homes sighed into the gentle rhythm. Some drops slipped along the angled roofs, and fell into gutters made of hollowed wood. Others gathered in little pools on the flat tops of towers. Some trickled down stone walls, tracing ancient paths carved by years of weather. In one narrow alley near Pudding Lane, the rain slid from the thatch above a tavern. It dripped in slow trails onto barrels stacked neatly beside the back door. The tavern keeper, still asleep in the room above, dreamed of warmth and cider. He did not stir. Inside that same tavern, the hearth was dark, but still smelled faintly of last night's smoke and song. Tankards lay washed and drying, their rims catching the faint echo of the rain. Up the hill, in a wealthier quarter, a manor house sat under the same sky. Rain tapped on its lead glass windows, like a poet knocking on a door. A servant moved quietly through the halls, with a candle in hand. She paused once, to watch the rivulets racing each other down the glass. They moved like living ink, rewriting the morning on the page of the world. Along the streets, the cobblestones, once dry and dull, darkened and began to shine. Water ran between the grooves in thin streams, curling around the edges of doorsteps and iron drain grates. A dog padded across the square, its coat slick with dew. It paused beneath a cart to shake off the rain, then curled against the warmth of a bakery's stone wall, sighing as if it too understood the calm in the air. Further down, the apothecary's shop was just beginning to wake. Its shutters opened with a slow groan, and behind them, shelves of herbs sat waiting, mint, lavender, dried orange peel. The smell of rain mixed with them in the breeze, a scent older than any record. From the tall tower of a watchhouse, a lone figure stood gazing at the grey horizon, a guard with a tired face, wrapped in a woolen cloak. He said nothing, only listened. The sound of the rain on the city below was enough. It was not a storm, not a downpour, just a steady, rhythmic dance between sky and earth, the kind that asked for no umbrella, only patience. As the morning moved onward, the rain continued to play its song, never louder, never hurried, a gentle percussion on slate, straw, cloth, and stone. And still, the city breathed with it. Slowly, calmly, as though it had nothing to prove, only something to remember. Evening had come, though you wouldn't know it by the sun. The sky, still cloaked in thick grey, grew darker, not with colour, but with weight. The kind of weight only fog could carry. It rolled in like a tide from the Thames, slow and hushed, wrapping every building and alleyway in a soft silken veil. The city didn't resist it. London let the fog in like an old friend returning from sea. And in that fog, the lights began to bloom. First, a single flame, then another. Tiny, flickering lanterns lit by cold fingers and quiet hands, hanging from iron hooks outside shop doors, nestled in wooden sconces along narrow lanes, some carried in glass orbs by those still walking the streets, others glowing faintly through the cracks in shutters, windows, and keyholes. Each one was small, fragile, yet in the fog they looked like stars. Down an alley near Cheapside, a cobbler leaned out from his doorway and lit the lantern beside his sign. The flame danced for a moment in the wet air, then settled into a warm, steady flicker. It cast long shadows on the cobbled street, where boot prints and wagon wheels had left quiet trails in the mud. Across the square, a scribe's window glowed. Inside, the man was bent low over a desk, ink bottle, quill, and candlelight. He worked slowly, his breath visible in the chill. Behind him, a row of manuscripts rested, each one a labor of weeks, sometimes months. But tonight, all that mattered was this hour, this page, this warmth. Closer to the Thames, fog thickened. It drifted between moored boats and clung to the rigging like ghosts. Fishermen moved silently, oil lamps swinging gently in their hands, lighting their way back to dockside cottages. Somewhere nearby, the bells of a small chapel tolled once, a soft, almost hesitant note. It echoed briefly, then vanished into the mist. The streets had grown quieter. The vendors were gone, the shops closed, even the animals had found shelter. But the light remained, not blinding, not bright, just enough to feel that someone was awake, that London was still breathing. A young boy passed through Bread Street, carrying a basket of kindling. His path was lit only by a wax taper cradled in a tin shell. It wobbled with every step, and once nearly went out, but it didn't. He paused at a doorway, knocked once, and disappeared inside. Behind him, the fog closed in again, softening every corner, dulling every sound, a veil of silence drawn over the day's noise. In one of the city's inns, a hearth crackled, its light bouncing off wooden beams. Patrons huddled close, not for stories or drink, but for the warmth. Candles sat on every table, their wax slowly pooling in copper trays. The shadows they cast made the walls breathe. And outside, beyond the windows, London exhaled a slow breath. No footsteps, no wheels, no clamor. Only the hush of mist and the silent company of flames. The city was not asleep, not yet, but it was resting. Candle by candle, light by light, the dark was welcomed, not feared. In medieval London, fog did not erase beauty. It revealed it, quietly, patiently, like a secret whispered from one century to the next. Night had come fully to London. The fog still hung low, now darker than before, not just with shadow but with silence. Even the Thames seemed to whisper instead of flow, its waters cloaked in quiet reverence. The city had not died. It had simply settled, folded into itself like a cathedral door closing after last prayers. And through that stillness, the stones began to speak. London, in those days, was not all wooden slums and crooked alleys. Beneath the grime and mud were bones, ancient ones. Roman walls still lingered in places. Stones set 1,000 years ago held firm, even as new timber leaned against them like children clinging to their elders. Along Ludgate Hill, the walls of old St. Paul's loomed high, not the great dome you may know today, but a different giant. Norman, towering. Its bell tower pierced the fog, and its stones, damp from rain and smoke, glistened in the candlelight that flickered from clerestory windows. Inside, monks padded softly between pillars, robes brushing against cold flagstones. Incense curled upward like ghostly vines. Psalms hummed low, and above them, the roof of the cathedral creaked like a ship at sea. wood straining, wind pushing, the centuries breathing. Farther down, near Tower Hill, the Tower of London stood unblinking. Stone walls, thick enough to hush cannon fire, arrow slits like empty eyes watching the river. Ravens stirred on their perches, restless in their sleep. Even here, where kings once bled and traitors whispered their last, there was calm. Iron gates, closed. Courtyard, empty. Only the guards remained, wrapped in cloaks, boots planted firm, hands resting on spears as frost clung to their brows. Closer to the common quarters, old tenements leaned into each other like tired neighbours. Their thatched roofs dripped slowly, water tracing paths along warped beams. Chimneys exhaled their last trails of smoke for the night. And beneath those roofs, rooms of stone and timber, layered with straw, blankets of wool, cracked bowls still warm from porridge, a doll carved from birch, a Bible in Latin too heavy for the child who tried to read it, a hearth, now only glowing coals. Not all buildings stood tall. Some sagged with age, warped by fire and time. Yet even in their frailty, they held stories. Stone held memory, and London, even in silence, was always telling its tale. You might pass an archway in the dark, carved by hands long gone, hear the creak of a door that had welcomed plague doctors and priests alike, step across a cobble where once a knight had fallen, or a thief had begged. Every corner was written with layers of life. And above it all, the spires. Thin, pointed fingers raised skyward, trying to touch something beyond the fog, not in arrogance, but in longing, reaching not just for heaven, but for meaning, for protection, for peace. From stone bridge to silent cloister, London did not sleep like the living do. It rested like the ancient, still rooted, remembering. And in that memory, it kept you safe. Whether you were a prince dreaming in velvet, or a mason asleep beside his hammer, the city held you. In wood and wax, in stone and shadow, you were part of its story now. Above the rooftops of London, where the mist met moonlight and silence wrapped itself in stone, the bell towers watched. These were not just instruments of time. They were sentinels, tall, hollow voices that rose through the darkness, calling out not just the hour, but a rhythm of life itself. In the city's heart, the tower of St. Mary May Le Beau stood proud. Her bell, known as the Bow Bell, had long been famous. They said if you were born within its sound, you were a true Cockney. But tonight, the bell did not ring. It rested, like the people below, wrapped in fog. Yet still, the tower listened. Pigeons shifted gently in the rafters. Feathers puffed against the damp air. A cat, black, thin, feral, slinked across a beam, tail flicking, and through a crack in the old wood, moonlight poured like cold milk on ancient stone. Inside the belfry, the great bell loomed, a dark giant in chains. Dust clung to its bronze flanks, and ropes hung like sleeping serpents from wooden beams above. No man stirred here tonight. The bell ringers had long since left, their hands raw from practice. The echo of their chants still hovered like ghosts in the wooden rafters. But something else moved. Not people, not spirits. Memory. The bell remembered every toll it had ever sounded. For plague, for fire, for war. Each vibration had passed through the city like a heartbeat. When death came, the bells had told the city. When peace returned, they'd told it that too. They were not just metal. They were timekeepers of the soul. Down below, a lamplighter's flame bobbed faintly. He stopped at the base of the church, lifting his taper to light one last lantern. The glass fogged quickly in the mist, casting a dim yellow halo. Then he moved on, boots scraping, leaving the bell in the dark once more. Inside the church, the nave sat empty, but not unloved. Candles flickered low, a wooden crucifix hung above the altar, its shadow long and stretched along the floor. The scent of beeswax and old prayers lingered in the air. Near the choir stalls, a forgotten psalter lay open, the pages curled like the corners of a dream. Latin letters danced in careful ink, red, gold, and blue, a hymn half remembered, a sacred tune long since sung. And above it all, in the bell tower's peak, something older waited. The wind. London's wind, thick with salt, soot, and memory, had always been restless. It slipped through cracks, whispered past gargoyles, and stirred the bell ropes gently, not enough to ring them, just enough to remind the tower it was not alone. Outside, The city pulsed in silence. Watchmen tapped their staves on cobbles, a code to each other in the dark. Clear. All well. Then, silence again. But in that silence lived the unseen. The cloaked figure pausing at the church's steps to pray. The mother clutching a fevered child, whispering to the Virgin. The young monk gazing from the bell tower window, wondering not about heaven, but about the lives he'd left behind. And the bells waited for them all. For morning, for miracles. In a city like London, faith and fear walked hand in hand. So the towers were built high, not just to watch, but to reach. And when the fog was thickest, when the stars were gone, they stood firm. And you, dear sleeper, beneath your quilt and dreams, are safer for it. Because though the bells may slumber, their towers do not. The mist has begun to lift, curling away like breath in cold air. The cobbled streets, damp and dappled from earlier rain, glisten like wet stone. And now, in the soft distance, a gentle creaking. A wooden cart. Its wheels roll slowly, pulling a load of barley and hay. Each thump on the uneven stone a lullaby in itself. The driver, hooded, hums to his horse. A short tune, old and forgettable, but warm, like a memory buried in time. His boots hang over the edge. One swings ever so slightly, in rhythm with the swaying cart. A dog trots beside him, tail low, head high, sniffing puddles and shadows, watching the world as it wakes. Behind them another cart appears, this one with straw, fresh and golden, the scent of earth, the sound of hooves. Not fast, never fast, only steady. London does not rush. Somewhere above, a shutter opens slowly. A woman peers out, her eyes following the carts, then closes it just as gently, the wooden thud softened by layers of linen and time. Down one alley, a boy leads a goat. Down another, a baker delivers loaves, tucked neatly in a cloth. The street is alive, but not loud. Never loud, only breathing. Before the carts rumble and the hooves echo, London lies in a hush, the kind only night knows. Mist rests on rooftops like a silken shawl. The streets are empty, but not for long. From the eastern gate, under a flickering lantern, a shape begins to move. It is an old cart, its frame wooden, its wheels thick with mud from yesterday's journey. A horse, slow and patient, pulls it forward, hooves clopping on cobblestone, not hurried, just steady. Behind it, another joins. Then another, each one with a different purpose. Sacks of flour, bundles of herbs, tools wrapped in linen. The city stirs, gently. The carts pass beneath arches, their drivers cloaked in wool, faces wrapped from the morning chill. The air smells of damp stone and soil. Crows call softly from tower nooks. Cats disappear between shutters and crates. No shouting, no rush. Just the peaceful sound of London beginning to move. Even the sounds are muted. Wheels creaking, ropes swinging, bridles jingling, like lullabies made of wood and wind. And above it all, from the turret of an old watchtower, a bell rings once, low and slow, a sign that the day has begun, but only just. The carts have begun their slow path through the streets, but along the Thames, a different kind of journey unfolds. The river is a mirror of the sky, pale grey, with streaks of silver where the clouds part. Mist rolls over the surface like spilled silk. It clings to wooden piers, coils around rope posts, and drifts between moored boats as if reluctant to let go. Then, from the fog, a paddle dips. Soft, rhythmic, unhurried. A ferryman, wrapped in a long woolen coat, stands at the rear of a flat-bottomed skiff. He moves with grace, practiced and patient, his oar slicing the water, sending soft ripples out like sighs. At his feet, a small crate of apples. Beside it, a folded note from a merchant. No shouting, no bargaining, only trust and passage. Other boats drift out from under the arches of old bridges, from behind tall warehouses, or from stone steps mossed green by years of tides. They don't just race, they glide. Some carry monks in dark robes, silent and still, hands tucked into sleeves. Others ferry bundles of cloth wrapped in waxed linen, perhaps bound for a market across the city, and some, just passengers, heads bowed, letting the fog wrap them like a prayer. Above, gulls wheel lazily. A church bell chimes softly upriver. It echoes over the water, then fades, as if swallowed by the fog. The ferrymen know the bends of the river like they know their own palms. They know where the currents pull, where the under-eddies whisper, where the herons stand still as ghosts at dawn. And when they pass one another, they nod. Not words, just a knowing. Like monks who have taken a vow of peace. As the sun begins to lift behind cloud veil, the fog thins just enough to show the outlines of towers, the spires of Southwark, the arch of London Bridge. But the ferrymen row on, back and forth, always gliding, as if the river itself is dreaming, and they are its quiet breath. Far from the gentle splash of oars, the land paths of medieval London awaken with a different rhythm. Hoofbeats, dull and steady, muffled by damp earth and morning mist. A lone rider appears along the old Roman road leading into the city. He wears a dark cloak, its edges damp with dew, its folds trailing behind like shadowed banners. A small satchel hangs from the saddle, and on it, a wax-sealed letter bound for a merchant near Cheapside. The horse breathes warm mist into the air. Its hooves strike stone, then earth, then stone again, as the city draws near. These early riders are often messengers, or guards returning from the watch, or travellers seeking a bed before the market stirs. Sometimes they ride in pairs, quiet, but not silent. Sometimes they are pilgrims, wearing carved wooden tokens pinned to their cloaks, dust from far-off shrines still clinging to their boots. The city does not rush to greet them. It watches. The gatekeepers at Aldgate lean from their tower windows, half awake, lanterns still glowing orange behind them. And above them, crows gather on the turrets, silent silhouettes against the pale sky. The rider passes under the portcullis. Its old iron teeth loom overhead, but stay raised, a welcome, not a warning. Inside the walls, the narrow lanes wind like veins. The horse slows. The rider leans forward, guiding with a gentle hand, nodding to the baker opening his shutters, to the washerwoman hanging linens above an alley. Here, in the stillness before trade begins, the streets are hushed. The city breathes slowly. Its pulse is soft, but steady. Behind every door there sips life preparing to stir. A candle being lit, a pot set over coals, a prayer whispered by a mother before the day begins. But above it all, before the clang of hammers, before the cries of merchants, there are just the riders, their path carved in silence, and the city watching, always watching. When the city sleeps, the river does not. The Thames, wide and quiet beneath a veil of starlight, becomes a secret highway, a mirror to the moon, a whispering passage for the unseen. Wood creaks softly. A narrow boat, long and low, glides along the water like a shadow. Its oars do not splash. They dip and rise with grace, as though guided by rhythm more than force. The boatman sits near the stern, hood drawn, hands bare and steady. He knows the curves of this river better than any map could show. He knows where the reeds whisper near Southwark, where the water deepens beneath London Bridge, where a single lantern on the bank marks the edge of safe passage. Some boats carry goods, sacks of grain, barrels of salted fish, woven baskets from Kent. Others carry people, a midwife crossing to the other side of town, a friar returning late from a bedside prayer. And some boats carry secrets, scrolls bound in oilcloth, letters from lovers, a small chest with no name, wrapped in red wax. The night makes no judgment. It only carries. The city above sleeps on. The guards at the river stairs lean against stone walls, sharing quiet words, tossing crumbs to the rats that dart between steps. In the distance, a dog howls, just once, then silence again. And still the boats move. They slip beneath archways, past mills whose wheels turn slowly in the tide, past taverns where only embers remain glowing behind shutters, past the cathedral, its spire reaching into the clouds like a frozen prayer. Sometimes a ferryman hums, a low song, older than any parchment. A lullaby for the river, for himself, for no one in particular. The mist rises. The moon dips lower. The journey continues. And long before the city wakes, the boat is gone, vanished into the folds of the river Sip's dream. At dawn, when the city gates creak open, the world stretches outward like a parchment unrolled. Cobblestone melts into dirt, and London fades behind, swallowed by fog and chimney smoke. Here begins the journey, not by sea or river, but by road, winding, worn, and full of stories. Wooden carts begin their slow roll forward. Each wheel groans beneath the weight of barley, clay pots, firewood, and cheese. Oxen pull steadily, hooves thudding into the damp earth. Their breath clouds the morning air. Merchants sit atop their loads, cloaks pulled tight, eyes scanning the tree-lined path ahead. They carry goods, but also news. Gossip from the markets, whispers of distant wars, rumors of miracles and mischief. Beside them, pilgrims walk in silence, sandals slapping the mud, rosaries clutched in calloused hands. They pass shrines carved into tree trunks, and pause when the bells of far-off abbeys toll through the mist. Deeper into the countryside, the road narrows and bends. Wolves no longer prowl here, but tales of them linger in every crooked branch and hollow. A lone rider trots past, his horse sips mane wet from dew. His saddle creaks with each movement. He carries a scroll marked with a seal, a message meant to outrun the wind. And then, further on, comes the stagecoach, a sturdy, rattling beast of wood and iron, drawn by 4 snorting horses. Its lanterns sway like stars caught in cages. Passengers inside sway too. A merchant woman dozing with coins tied to her belt. A scribe reading by flickering candlelight. A child pressing her fingers to the fogged glass, watching the trees race past like ghosts. They pass villages barely more than a few roofs and a well. They stop at inns with hanging signs. The King Sep's Head, the Fox and Candle, places where bread is warm, ale is cheap, and tales are traded with firelight. Every journey is its own world, measured not just in miles, but in moments between hoofbeats and hearths, between sunrise and sighs. And even as the miles wear on, there is comfort in the rhythm, the roll of the cart, the sway of the coach, the crunch of gravel beneath boot. Eventually, as the day folds into evening, the road leads back once more toward the city Seps, great shadow, toward smoke and bells and the glow of home. And the gates that once opened will close again. The sky turns silver first, then violet, then darker still. As night creeps in, the road no longer leads away from the city. It curves gently back toward it. Faint in the distance, the bells of London toll once more, softened by mist and miles. A homing sound, low and steady, like a mother's hum in the dark. The carts return, lighter now, goods traded, stories exchanged. Oxen move slower. Drivers slump, cloaks damp with evening dew. On foot, pilgrims tread with blistered soles and quiet eyes, souls lighter, burdens fewer. They whisper prayers with each step, their shadows long in the last of the lantern glow. The stagecoach rattles past again, its lanterns now warm like hearthlight. Inside, a child sleeps on her mother Sip's lap. The merchant woman counts coins no longer. She watches the sky. The scribe, quill tucked away, dreams of ink and parchment and peace. Across the river, ferrymen still glide, the last few boats of the day. Their poles dip silently into black water, guiding passengers beneath gasping willow branches. And under bridges, shrouded in fog, the city walls loom closer, not as a warning, but as a welcome. Candles flicker behind shuttered windows. Smoke spirals from chimneys like sighs. Guards nod at travellers re-entering. Dogs bark faintly in alleys. And somewhere, a baker prepares for morning, rising early even as others return to rest. Inside the city, narrow boats dock quietly in the canal shadows. Their ropes creak as they tie off. Their captains speak in murmurs, their day's work done. The horses are stabled. The wheels are still. The boots are off. The fire is lit. And slowly, all that moved begins to still. The road's empty. The inn's quiet. the world hushed beneath a moonlit sky. Tonight, London sleeps, wrapped in fog, in firelight, in dreams. The day draws to a close in medieval London. The sun lowers behind rooftops of timber and slate, its golden light spilling into narrow lanes and busy courtyards. Shadows lengthen. The marketplace, once bustling with morning calls and clinking coins, begins to quiet. You walk slowly through Cheapside, where cobblestones still remember 1,000 footsteps. The air holds the scent of old wood, warm bread, and distant herbs. Wooden stalls line the path, their canvas roofs fluttering softly in the evening breeze. A fishmonger hums as he scrapes down his stall. The last few herrings are packed in salt. A cloth is drawn over the table. Nearby, a baker dusts flour from his apron, offering a leftover loaf to a passing child. Bell chimes echo from the tower of St. Mary Menlebo. One by one, shutters close. Coins jingle quietly into pouches. Merchants count their earnings by candlelight. Their faces lit with a gentle amber glow. A cart rolls by slowly, its wheels murmuring against the stone. You pause beside a spice vendor's cart. The air is rich with cloves, rosemary, and crushed peppercorns. He packs his goods into wooden boxes, his hands practiced and patient. In the fading light, there sips a hush. Not silence, but the quiet lull of a city exhaling. You step away from the main market and into a side alley, narrower and calmer. The sounds are softer here, just the creak of a sign above a shop door, the hush of footsteps on stone, the low murmur of a family preparing supper inside. A cat stretches atop a barrel, yawning before slipping into the shadows. An old man tends to a small brazier, warming his hands before his final walk home. You watch the smoke rise, curling into the cool dusk. As you wander, you pass taverns beginning to stir. Lanterns are being lit, one by one, casting warm pools of light onto the street. A few voices drift out, low and steady, as travelers settle in for a drink and a story. A boy sweeps the stone outside his father's shop, drawing neat lines in the dust. Down by the edge of the market, two women fold linens. Their conversation is gentle and rhythmic, like a lullaby woven through centuries. You lean on a wooden post, watching the sky above change color, pale lavender to deep indigo. The city is becoming a painting, and you are still within it. A warm scent curls through the streets, bread baking again in small home ovens, meats cured with care, onions sizzling over low flames. You follow the trail, breathing in rosemary, thyme, the faint sweetness of cider warmed indoors. Past a cobbler's workshop, the final pair of shoes hangs drying near the fire. His tools rest, quiet and still. Children skip stones along a narrow drainage stream. Their laughter fades as they're called in, one by one, the doors gently latching behind them. The city lights shift again. Candlelight now dances in most windows. On a corner, a vendor sells hot broth in clay bowls. He hums an old song, its melody older than the street itself. You sit for a moment on a wooden step. Above, smoke drifts lazily from chimney tops. The stars begin to whisper awake. This was London Sept's lullaby. Beneath stone and soot, it sings still. The bell tolls again, this time, softer, slower. The hour for supper, prayer, and rest. You pass under an old stone archway and emerge near a well, where water glimmers faintly. A young woman fills a pail. Her lantern swings beside her, casting golden circles along the wall. There's something soothing in the repetition. The waylifs here flow with the rhythm of light and shadow, hunger and rest, coin and kindness. A tanner's apprentice washes his hands in a wooden basin, his sleeves rolled. He watches the night settle, just like you do, quiet and grateful. A breeze carries the smell of rosemary and tallow. Your feet move without needing thought, drawn down one more alley, where an elderly couple finishes stacking apples into a wooden crate. Their faces are wrinkled, soft and peaceful. This city doesn't set rush. It closes gently, like a book placed beside the bed. You reach a small square, a circle of homes, shops, and one little chapel with a bell that never rings loudly. Candles are being lit inside windows. Firelight flickers from hearths. A boy recites his letters beside the fire. A woman mends a tunic in silence, her needle moving like a whisper. Even the horses are calm, tied at stable posts, eyes heavy with sleep. You notice the cobblestones now glisten ever so slightly, as a thin mist rises. It clings gently to the ground, like a blanket laid upon the city. Voices fade. Laughter becomes memory. The market has gone to sleep. You rest on a bench beside a shuttered cart, your eyes tracing the play of candlelight across the timber beams above. Now, the market is still. Empty stalls wait like sleeping beasts. Ropes sway gently, cloth rustles faintly overhead. London is breathing in. A slow, deep breath before its dreams begin. You walk past a butcher's stall now bare, its table scrubbed clean, past the baker's shop with a single candle left burning, past the place where fish once lay on ice, now dark and washed clean. The stones beneath your feet are still warm. You look up. The moon has climbed, watching from above the rooftops. This city, this ancient beating city, knows how to rest. And now, so do you. Lay down your thoughts. Let your heartbeat match the rhythm of these winding lanes. And drift, as London does, into the peace of night. The cobbled lane curved gently beneath the weight of the night. Mist hugged the ground, rising like breath from a sleeping giant, and just ahead, through the haze, a warm flicker danced. It came from a lantern, gently swaying on its iron hook, and beneath it, an old wooden sign creaked ever so softly in the wind, painted with the faded image of a boar. The boar and lantern, an inn as old as the cobbles themselves. Its timber frame leaned slightly to one side, tired perhaps, but proud. Moss clung to the lower stones. Ivy crept along the walls like an old story retold by nature itself. You step inside. The door gives a gentle groan, not a protest, but a welcome. The scent of the room is soft and layered. Roasted chestnuts, a hint of aged wood, beeswax, and the warm trace of mulled cider. The hearth dominates the room, stone, blackened by centuries of fire, and upon it, a flame still burns. Not roaring, not boastful, just there, like a memory that never left. Benches line the walls, draped with wool throws. The air hums with low voices, the kind that don't need to be heard, only shared. Behind the counter, the innkeeper moves like a dance, slow, measured, comfortable in the rhythm of things. She wipes the rim of a tankard, sets it down, and without looking, slides it toward a guest who's just returned from the fields. Above, wooden beams stretch across the ceiling, dark with age and smooth where hands have touched them for generations. You sit at a corner table, round, slightly uneven, and run your fingers over its carvings. Initials, symbols, a small etched star, each a tiny story. Each left by someone who once, like you, needed warmth. A candle burns on the table. Its light wavers slightly with each breath of the room. From the corner, a man hums a tune. Not a song, not yet. Just the beginning of one. And so, in the quiet corners of this ancient tavern, life continues. Gently, peacefully, slowly. The night deepens. But here, time has already fallen asleep. The candle is beginning to shorten. Its wax pulls slowly at the base. The flame, still steady, flickers slightly as a soft draft moves through the tavern. The innkeeper nods toward the stairs. You rise, slowly, limbs already heavy, with the kindness of warmth. The wooden steps creak beneath your weight, not in alarm, but in recognition. Each step tells its own story. A worn dip in the middle of every tread, shaped by boots and bare feet, monks and travellers, peddlers and poets. The upstairs hallway is narrow. The walls lean slightly inward. Plaster peeled in places, but the scent here is comforting, like linen, lavender, and dust warmed by candlelight. Your room is small. Just a bed, a wash basin, and a shuttered window. The floor slopes ever so slightly, and when you sit on the bed, it sighs beneath you, a sound so soft it feels like it belongs to the night itself. A single candle burns on a small shelf. Its light is golden and tired. On the walls, dried herbs hang in bundles, rosemary, sage, and a few stems of lavender. Someone once believed they warded off bad spirits. Now, they simply scent the dreams. You unlatch the window. The shutters open with a quiet click. Outside, the rooftops lean into one another like old friends. Mist curls over the thatch and slips silently down the tiles. And above, the moon rests low, round, pale, still. A distant bell rings. Once, then again. marking the hour for no one in particular. You lie back. The pillow is uneven, but cool. The blanket is wool, heavy but comforting. Somewhere downstairs a stool is scraped across stone. Someone coughs once, then silence again. You stare at the ceiling, its beams dark and scarred with age. They hold the night in place. And slowly, your thoughts begin to soften. Your breathing slows. The world becomes quieter, and the tavern holds you like a story that has not yet ended. Outside, the city breathes. Not loudly, not harshly, but slow, steady, like the heartbeat of something ancient and resting. From your small window, you hear the soft crack of a lantern being lit. Then, footsteps. Measured, familiar. It sips the night watchman. He walks the same path he has walked for years. Boots on cobblestone. Lantern swinging. And every so often, a song. Not sung in full voice, but murmured into the mist. A melody known only to him and the shadows. Past 10 a sept clock, and all is well. His voice rolls low, barely rising above a whisper. But you hear it, even through the closed shutters, like a lullaby made from oil smoke and fog. In the distance, a dog barks once, then nothing. Your bed creaks slightly as you turn. The blanket shifts, not too warm, not too cold. Just right for a night like this. Below, the tavern has gone quiet. No clinks of mugs, no muttering patrons, only the subtle breathing of the old beams and the ticking of time held in wood and wool. The watchman hums again. A few slow notes, drifting through the alley. You imagine his lantern glow sweeping across the cobblestones, highlighting the edge of a barrel here, a forgotten shoe there, a curled-up cat beneath a window. It stops the hour when the world belongs to silence, when even the ghosts rest. And yet the tavern holds you, not like a trap, but like a cradle. Not like a memory, but like a pause in time. The bed creaks again, but you no longer shift. The room stills. The breath of the candle flutters once, then again, then still. Outside, the night deepens. The watchman fades into the fog, his voice just an echo now. Past 10 o'clock, and all is well. And slowly, sleep begins to unfurl itself across your thoughts. A blanket, even softer than wool, even older than the wood. Above your head, the rafters sigh. They've stood for generations, thick beams of dark oak, scarred and smoked by hundreds of years of stories. Ale spilled, fights started, songs sung, secrets whispered. And now, they hold you, gently, silently, as another night adds its breath to their grain. You lie still beneath them. A single moth flutters in the corner, circling the candle's last golden glow. Its wings cast shadows on the ceiling that dance like forgotten lullabies. The tavern groans once, a low, contented sound, as if stretching before bed. From downstairs, the last footsteps retreat. The innkeeper, locking up. You hear the wooden bolt slide into place, and then the slow ascent of worn boots on stone steps. A pause outside your door, then the faint flick of a snuffed candle. Darkness. But it is not empty. No, the night inside the tavern is full of the kind of silence that speaks softly, that listens, that remembers. You feel it in the crackle of the dying hearth below, in the gentle creak of wood contracting in the cool air, in the warm press of wool blankets tucked around your limbs. Outside, the rain begins again. Not loud, just a hush, like the sky sighing in its sleep. Each drop taps the roof above like fingers tracing the past, tapping softly on the stories sealed in wood. A lullaby for those who still dream beneath the rafters. You wonder who else has slept in this very room. A travelling bard, perhaps, curled beside a lyre. A merchant-sipped son, dreaming of far coasts. A runaway, hiding from the world. Or a knight, resting his blade and sorrow. They sipped all passed through, left no names, only the warmth of breath, the dent in a pillow, the echo of dreams. And now, it's back your turn. The moth has stilled, the candle is out, and the tavern holds you still. Somewhere deep inside its bones, the old wood whispers, you are safe. Sleep, slow and kind, begins to wind its way through your thoughts, coiling, cradling, calming. Outside, the rain continues. Inside, you do not move. The rafters keep watch, and the tavern dreams with you. It is the deepest part of night. The tavern has fallen so still, it feels as though the building itself is asleep. No footsteps, no whispers, not even the groan of shifting beams. Only the sound of your own breathing, slow, measured, content, as it mingles with the last fading warmth of the hearth below. Somewhere, a coal breaks. A soft crack, like a quiet yawn from the fire's memory. The embers no longer burn bright. They glow, dim and red, in the belly of the stone hearth. It is the hour of the ember, that forgotten time, long after voices fade, when dreams settle into their deepest stretch, and even shadows pause. Your body, wrapped in wool and the scent of old oak, feels distant now, as if it too belongs to the tavern, and not to you. Outside, the rain has stopped. The world beyond the inn feels far away, a place that no longer needs you. Not now, not tonight. All that matters is here. The softness of straw-stuffed bedding beneath you, the hush of ancient rafters above, and the sense that somehow this room has known you for longer than you've been alive. You shift gently. The bed creaks, not in protest, but in welcome. And in the silence, the tavern breathes with you. You imagine stories still lingering in the walls, of strangers who once laughed here, cried here, found solace in the very chair by the fire. You imagine the innkeeper, years ago, much younger, sitting with a mug of warm cider, watching the snow fall. Everything changes, but the quiet comfort of this place remains. Even the dust is gentle here, settling only where it's invited, blanketing shelves like old snow, untouched and soft. Time, too, moves differently now. No clocks, no tolling bells, only the slow melt of night, and the ember, still glowing, still remembering. Your eyes close again, not from exhaustion, but from peace. You drift, carried not by urgency, but by the hush of wood, the pulse of the coals, the whisper of linen, and the warmth that lingers, even in silence. This hour, the hour of the ember, belongs to sleep. And you belong to it. A faint light peeks beneath the door. Not bright, not urgent, just the earliest grey of morning, soft as wool, slow as breath. The embers in the hearth are nothing now, just ash and memory. Yet, a faint heat still lives in the stones, radiating into the room like the last hum of a lullaby. You stir, but gently, not woken by sound, but by stillness. Above, the ceiling beam stretches heavy and ancient. It has watched over countless travelers before you, seen storms come and go, held secrets in its wood grain, and now it holds the moment for you. The tavern begins to wake, not with clatter or clang, but with the rhythm of quiet life returning. The distant scrape of a stool across the floor, a broom brushing against the stone, the yawning creak of a back door opening to let in the day. No words, not yet. Only movements, gestures, like the slow turn of a wheel. Somewhere below, the innkeeper stokes a new fire. You can almost hear the hush of kindling being laid, the soft exhale of breath as a match is struck. Then, the first crackle of new flame. It sips morning, but not the kind that demands anything of you. No rush. No task, just the invitation to be, to linger. Your fingers graze the blanket's edge. It sits still warm where you lay, still safe, still home. And though the world waits beyond the wooden door, this room, this hour, reminds you, you have time. You have stillness. You have rest. The insept's walls hum with it. The stone remembers. The beam above watches. And the morning takes its time. The village is still, but within one cottage, a hearth glows gently. Not with fire, just with warmth that lingers. A memory of flame curled deep in stone. The wooden walls hold the heat like a promise. Thick beams cradle the ceiling, each marked by time, each whispering the stories of hands that built them. In the corner, a clay jug rests by the window, empty now, but rinsed and waiting. It caught water from the well just before sundown, when the sky was still lavender. A low table sits in the center of the room, rough, hand-hewn, stained from years of meals. A loaf of bread, half-eaten, still lies atop it. Beside it, a carved wooden knife, used to slice cheese and silence alike. On a stool nearby, a boy sips shoes, worn, muddied at the sole, set neatly, just so. A day sips work done, a small pair of feet finally at rest. The walls are quiet. No voices, just the faint crackle of settling wood, and the sigh of old straw shifting in the loft above. Someone breathes softly from the corner. Wrapped in linen, shoulders rising and falling, like the tides of a slow sea. This is not a palace, not a castle, just a home. But it holds more than warmth. It holds the rhythm of life. The quiet pulse of days lived without fanfare, but filled with purpose. A spoon left resting in a bowl. A curtain tugged halfway across a window. A doll carved from driftwood, missing one arm, smiling still. These are the relics of the everyday, proof that someone loved and worked and came back home. The hearth watches it all, silently, faithfully. Tomorrow, the fire will be kindled again. The bread will be baked. The well will be visited. And the shoes, they will walk through the village once more. But for now, there is only this moment. A room at peace. A night without need. A home, breathing in the quiet. Above the quiet hearth, above the low beams and flickering shadows, a loft rests beneath the thatched roof. It is not spacious, not grand, but it is safe. A ladder, carved from ash wood, leans into the opening, its steps worn smooth, by the same small feet, climbing up night after night. The loft smells of dried herbs, lavender, thyme, and the sharp green of nettle. Bunches hang from the rafters, tied in twine, swaying gently when the wind breathes through the thatch. A blanket lies rumpled in the corner, woolen, coarse, but warm. Beneath it, a child sleeps, cheek pressed to the crook of an elbow, hair tousled by dreams. Next to the child, a straw-stuffed figure, a toy soldier, clothed in scraps of old linen, painted with a face that sits nearly faded. In the far corner, an old chest. Its lid creaks when opened, not from age, but from memory. Inside, a stitched shawl, a wooden bowl, letters folded tight and bound with ribbon, words passed between generations, and a comb, bone-handled, simple, used by the mother once, now used by the daughter. Outside the roof, the night hums. An owl stirs in the rafters. Raindrops begin to gather on the thatch, a rhythm like distant drums, soft and patient. Inside, the loft breathes warmth. It is not lonely here, not forgotten. This little space, this sky-kissed nest above the world, holds dreams like lanterns. And as the child turns in sleep, clutching the straw soldier tighter, the wind hushes, and all is still. Back below the loft, the hearth still glows faintly. Its light breathes against stone and timber, pushing back the shadows with quiet warmth. Beside it sits a stool, 3 legs, uneven. A cushion stuffed with straw rests atop it, patched in places where time has worn through. Here, the old woman sits in the mornings. She knits, she hums, she speaks softly to the fire as if it listens. A basket rests at her feet, filled with bits of thread, buttons made of bone, and old socks needing mending. Above the hearth, a shelf, barely noticed at first glance, but it holds stories. A jar of salt, a pewter spoon, a whistle carved from alder wood, and behind it all, a tiny locket, tarnished, etched with a symbol no one remembers. She does. Every evening, she opens it once, just once, looks inside, and closes it with a nod, as if someone far away has spoken. On the table, a single candle burns low. Its wax pulls quietly at its base, dripping into an old iron holder, the shape of a bird mid-flight. The table is simple, yet sacred. Here, meals are shared, bread broken, stories whispered. Even silence feels full in its presence. The surface bears marks, knife cuts, ink stains, and once, the carved initials of a child who thought no one would notice. They did. but they smiled. Outside, the rain deepens. A curtain of mist hugs the window frame. The world feels folded inwards, safe and small. And in this tucked-away home, nothing grand is needed. Only the warmth of the fire, the hush of stories, and the quiet dignity of the everyday. The window above the table is made from thick, rippled glass. Not clear, but cloudy, like memories half remembered. In the daytime, sunlight filters through it, in golden beams, casting soft shapes on the table and floor, like spirits dancing slowly, quietly. At night, the window becomes a mirror, a reflection of the flickering room inside. And sometimes, if the moon is bright, a shimmer of pale silver drapes across it, like a veil. Beside the window, a child sits. She watches the world from the sill, chin on her knees, hands clasped like she sips holding a wish. She watches the street, the lamplighter, the baker sips cart. She watches the stray dog that always passes at dusk, never in a hurry, always alone. Sometimes she waves, sometimes the wind answers. Her mother tells her that windows are eyes of the house. They see things people forget to notice. They see kindness when no one is looking. They see the first snowflake land. They see the boy across the road slip a coin into the beggar sip's hand. She believes this, and so she never draws the curtain in haste. She speaks to the window when she sips alone. "Did you see that?" she whispers. "Wasn't Stet that beautiful?" The window never replies, but its glow changes, just slightly, as if it has. The walls around her are filled with soft sounds, creaks of timber settling, the sigh of cloth as it shifts, a far-off bell tolling from the distant church spire. Even in stillness, the home hums, a lullaby without words, a comfort stitched into the bones of the building. And outside, rain glides down the window pane, leaving trails like tears, but not of sorrow, just of time passing gently by. As the sky turns indigo, the day exhales, and evening begins its quiet ritual. Inside the home, soft footsteps move from room to room, not rushed, but familiar. The father lights the final candle. Its flame dances for a moment, then settles, like it knows its place. He checks the latch on the door, gently, twice. Not from fear, but habit. The mother folds the linen, fresh from the line, smelling of wind and soap. She smooths the edges, runs her hand across the weave, and stacks it neatly, like a prayer answered. A boy carries firewood to the hearth, his arms full, his cheeks pink from the cold. He tries not to drop any. One piece tumbles, but no one scolds. He picks it up and sets it in the stack like nothing happened. The cat curls near the warmth, twitching in a dream. One ear flicks at a sound no one else hears. In the corner, a broom leans against the wall, as if waiting for the final sweep of the night. The chores are not chores here. They are rituals, moments of care wrapped in rhythm. The scraping of a chair, the pouring of water into a bowl, the soft brushing of a cloth across the table. Each act, a thread in the fabric of home. Outside, the streets grow quieter. The last vendors pack away their stalls, and shutters click closed, one by one. Inside, the glow deepens, not just from the fire, but from the feeling that everything is ready, that everything is right, at least for now. And someone hums, a tune with no words, a melody passed down through years, not taught, just remembered. The house is quiet now, not silent, but full of soft sounds. The slow creak of the wood settling, the faint crackle of the hearth, its embers glowing like tiny suns. A gentle sigh, as someone shifts beneath a wool blanket. The family gathers near the fire, close but not crowded, each in their place, each with their comfort. The old dog lifts his head, then rests it again on the warm floor. He knows this hour. He has seen many like it. He trusts it. By the flickering flame, a little girl draws circles on the table with her finger. Not because she sips bored, but because it soothes her. The father tells a story, a quiet one. Not for teaching, not for laughter, but for the simple act of remembering, of carrying something forward from long ago. His voice moves like a low tide, and one by one, eyelids grow heavy. The candle burns low, its light turning golden and slow. The shadows grow long, then soft, then blur. Someone yawns. Another nestles closer. The mother rises, wraps a shawl around her shoulders, and gently checks the window latch. A final look outside, at the moon brushing the rooftops, at the mist curling through the alleyways, at the world ready to rest. She turns and walks back to the hearth, where warmth waits and sleep begins. In this home, in this night, there is no hurry, no fear, no doubt, only the breath of the fire, the rhythm of peace, and the hush that only comes when the world feels whole. Dawn has not yet fully broken. The sky, a deep indigo, the streets below still empty, still dreaming. But high above, in a slender bell tower of carved stone, a figure stirs, the bell ringer. His steps are slow, familiar. He winds the stairs without haste, his lantern painting arcs of gold on cold walls. He reaches the top, looks out. The world is hushed. He pulls the rope, once, and the bell sings. A low, resonant note floating over rooftops and rivers, through alleys and into dreams. Another pull, another note, and another. Each toll, a breath, a heartbeat, a gentle calling. Come to prayer. Come to peace. Monks stir in their cells. Villagers stretch in their beds. The world begins to move. But for now, the bell keeps singing, alone, above a sleeping town. Its echoes fading like ripples in morning mist. The monastery breathed with a rhythm, older than memory. Beyond the bell tower, down a narrow stone path, worn smooth by centuries of feet, lay the cloister, a square of silence, cradled by arches and shadow. Rain had begun to fall, soft and slow. It pattered gently on the leaded roof above, and collected in the carved corners of the cloister garden. Ivy curled up the sandstone walls, like green veins threading a sleeping giant. Inside, monks moved in hushed procession. Their robes, coarse but clean, whispered against the flagstone floor. Candles flickered from iron sconces, their golden halos casting long silhouettes on ancient walls. This was their sacred hour, when the world beyond the monastery blurred into dream. The air was cool but kind, and filled with the scent of beeswax, parchment, and freshly tilled earth. A single raven perched outside the arcade, watching in silence, head bowed as if it too were praying. In the scriptoria, a brother dipped his quill into ink and etched another letter upon the vellum. His hand was steady, his mind at peace. Every stroke was a meditation. The candle beside him trembled slightly in the draught of the corridor, then steadied. Beyond the cloister, the chapel doors remained open, always, as if to remind the night that sanctuary was never far away. A single candle remained burning near the altar, surrounded by coloured glass windows that waited for morning to pour life into them once more. No voices raised, no hurried steps, just the heartbeat of the monastery, a sacred stillness, a tender pause. Even time, here, seemed to kneel. Deeper within the monastery, beyond the cloister and chapel, stood a heavy oaken door, bound in iron and worn with age. Few entered without reverence, for behind it lay a sacred sanctuary not of stone, but of parchment. The monastery library. The hinges groaned softly as the door opened, releasing the scent of old vellum, dust, lavender oil, and time. Inside, the air was still, utterly still, as though every word written here had cast a spell of silence that lingered forever. Shelves rose high, brushing the ribbed ceiling, each lined with books lovingly bound by generations of hands. No titles on spines, no signs, but the monks knew their order by heart, like a shepherd knowing each sheep by name. A tall window filtered moonlight through stained glass, scattering reds, blues, and golds across the wooden floor. A single candle on a reading desk shimmered beside a globe, an hourglass, and a parchment map of the heavens. The ticking of time passed unnoticed. Brother Aldrich sat at the far desk, tracing a faded manuscript with care. He did not read for leisure, nor ambition. He read to preserve. Every scroll, every page, was a thread in the tapestry of faith and knowledge. To lose even one would be to tear a hole in the divine story. A tiny mouse scurried across the beams above, pausing at a groove worn smooth by candle smoke, but even it made no sound. From the vaulted ceiling hung a chain with a brass censer, used only during festivals. It swayed gently, moved by no wind, and shimmered as if remembering past incense rising in prayer. No footstep echoed. No voice called out. Only the gentle brush of pages being turned, the occasional scratch of quill on parchment, and the subtle creak of wood contracting in the night. Here, words were not spoken. They were kept. Here, stories slept, and were not to be woken carelessly. The sky was still dark, a velvet curtain untouched by dawn, but within the monastery walls, a rhythm older than time stirred, a flicker of movement, a rustle of robes, and then the bell. Clang. Its deep voice rolled across the valley, through woods and hills and sleeping farms. It did not wake the world, only the chosen, those who had given up dreams of worldly comfort for lives of quiet devotion. The bell rang not in alarm, nor in celebration. It rang for matins, the earliest hour of monastic prayer, a call to greet the day, not with words, but with worship. From small cells tucked along stone corridors, monks emerged like shadows, their feet padded across cold floors. Some wore thick woolen habits, others thin tunics layered against the chill. No one spoke. The passage to the chapel was lit only by wall sconces, flames dancing in iron cages. Their light flickered across worn faces, some young and bright-eyed, others weathered and wise, yet all moved with the same steady purpose. Inside the chapel, candles flickered atop a simple stone altar. The vaulted ceiling seemed to hold its breath, and the walls, thick with centuries of prayer, absorbed every footstep. Monks took their places in the wooden choir stalls, arranged on either side. A single voice began a chant, slow and low like water finding its way through stone. Then another joined, then another, and soon the air filled with a tapestry of sound, not loud, not urgent, but eternal. The voices rose in Latin, echoing across marble and timber, notes wove together like strands of thread in a holy loom. Their prayer was not rushed. Time had no dominion here. They sang for the sun still hidden, for the world still dreaming, for the peace that lived only in silence. As they chanted, shadows gave way to dim light. Through the stained glass, the faintest blue of morning hinted at the world outside. Trees stood still, smoke curled from a distant chimney. But inside, the monks chanted on, their rhythm unbroken, their purpose clear. They were not waiting for the day to begin, they were welcoming it. As the sun's first golden rays touched the monastery's stone walls, life within took on a soft momentum, not rushed, but flowing like a gentle stream. From the eastern cloister the almoner stirred, a monk tasked not with prayer alone but with service to the poor. He walked slowly through the passageway, the hem of his robe brushing smooth flagstones worn by decades of footsteps. A small basket, hung from his arm, filled with bread baked the night before and wrapped in cloth. He moved past an open courtyard, where vines crawled up sun-dappled walls. Bees hovered lazily near lavender and rosemary. A sparrow hopped near the well. He stopped for a moment to breathe. The morning was crisp, but not cold, peaceful, but not still. From the chapel, the last echoes of matins faded, and the monastery turned quietly toward its daily rhythm. The almoner passed through an archway, where a carved stone cross caught the sunlight and painted a shadow across the corridor. At the gatehouse, a small wooden door creaked open. Beyond it, a group waited. Peasants from the nearby village, travelers passing through, mothers with children clutching empty bowls. They didn't speak, they didn't beg, they simply waited. The almoner nodded gently. Without words, he handed out small loaves of bread, sometimes two, sometimes just one. To a barefoot boy with wide eyes, he gave a dried fig from the folds of his robe. To an old woman with trembling hands, a thick woolen cloth. This wasn't sit charity. This was communion. For each item given, he offered a silent prayer, that the bread might nourish, the cloth might warm, and that peace, somehow, might follow them home. As the line slowly moved, a breeze drifted in from the fields beyond. It carried with it the faint scent of hay and smoke, and the distant sound of a shepherd's pipe. The almoner looked to the sky. Doves circled the chapel tower. A single feather fell, twisting gently in the air before landing near the threshold. He bent down, picked it up, and tucked it into the satchel tied to his belt, a simple gesture, a quiet symbol. By the time the last person had received their share, the sun had climbed higher. Light spilled through the monastery gate and danced upon the walls. The almoner stood for a moment more. He was not a hero. He was not known. But in that quiet corner of the world, he was needed, and that was enough. As noon approached, the bell in the south tower rang once more, not with the urgency of matins or the quiet solemnity of vespers, but with a round, resonant tone that echoed across the cloisters. It was the bell for the midday meal. In the refectory, the long wooden tables were already set. Pewter cups stood beside simple bowls. A faint scent of lentils, barley, and herbs wafted from the kitchen beyond, where a monk stirred a pot slowly, humming a hymn under his breath. The room was cool, despite the warmth outside. Thick stone walls shielded it from the sun, and high-arched windows let in light like falling veils, soft, golden and dappled with colours cast by stained glass. The monks entered in silence. Their robes whispered as they passed through the doorway, each man pausing to bow before the cross hanging above the hearth. They moved with quiet purpose, taking their places on the wooden benches, hands folded, eyes calm. At the head of the table, the reader rose. In his hands, a worn leather-bound book, the Rule, the Psalms, and old stories of saints and martyrs. As the food was served, he began to read. His voice was low and steady, floating through the air like incense. He spoke of humility, of patience, of a man who once walked barefoot across the Alps to beg for forgiveness, and of another who found peace planting vines that would never bear fruit in his lifetime. No one responded. No one needed to. The only sounds were the clink of wooden spoons against earthen bowls, the rustle of robes, and the turning of parchment pages. The midday sun reached its peak, spilling light through the coloured windows, casting red and blue and amber across the floor like sacred fire. One ray fell upon a monk's hand, paused mid-spoonful. Another landed on the book, illuminating a passage about mercy. Outside, the world moved on. Carts rolled down dusty roads, oxen ploughed fields, and children splashed in distant streams. But here, within these quiet walls, time softened. The meal ended not with chatter or clatter, but with a final prayer. A chorus of low voices murmured thanks, not just for food but for stillness, for purpose, for the day itself. And as the monks rose to return to their tasks, the refectory remained behind, filled not with noise, but with presence. The light lingered a little longer in the room, catching dust motes as they swirled and settled like tiny stars. And in that glow, in that hush, the world felt closer to heaven. The city slumbers behind, a soft hush settling over the stone and timber, while the river waits, always waiting. Down by the Thames, in the hour just before dawn, the world feels wrapped in silver breath. Mist glides low across the water, gentle as a lullaby, brushing against wooden hulls and the worn ropes tied to mossy moorings. Lanterns, left to swing softly on iron hooks, cast golden halos that ripple in the dark, mirror-like surface. Each light trembles slightly, as if it too were dreaming. The water does not rush here, it glides, thick, old, and wise. The docks are lined with narrow boats, tied side by side, their bows gently nudging one another with each slow pulse of tide. Oars rest inside, damp from the night air, and empty baskets await the morning market. Nothing stirs, not yet. But if one listens, really listens, a soft lull can be heard. The water laps against the stones, a distant splash echoes beneath a moored ferry. Somewhere, far off in the fog, a gull cries once and is gone. On the other side of the river, you can just make out the rooftops of Southwark, dark triangles against the slow-growing light. Chimney smoke curls upward, thin and grey, folding into the mist like it belongs there, another part of the dream. And there, further down the quay, a lone figure walks slowly, lantern in hand. His coat is thick wool, and his hat is pulled low, and his boots make barely a sound. He pauses now and then to check the ropes, to touch the wooden railings with calloused fingers. He knows the river, like an old friend, one that sleeps and sighs and sometimes rages. He stops near the water's edge, where reeds grow wild, and watches as the sky begins to shift. The deep blue of night lifts to a bruised lavender. The lantern's glow dims a little, outshone now by the growing promise of morning. He closes his eyes, just for a moment, listening. The Thames breathes beneath him, timeless, endless, and in its breath there is a calm that no street, nor steeple, nor bell tower can rival. Just water, mist, light, and dreams that drift softly downstream. By the time the sun teases the edge of the rooftops, the wharf begins to hum, not loudly, not with shouts or bells or clamor, but with murmurs, quiet voices stirring the stillness, as though the city is whispering itself awake. An old woman sweeps the stone steps leading down to the water. Her broom, made of bundled twigs, scratches lightly across the mossy surface. She hums to herself, a song older than the street, a lullaby from when she was a child in a different village, under a different sky. But here she is now, where the Thames moves slow and familiar, her song carrying out across the sleepy quay. Near a stack of barrels, a boy sits on a crate, eating an apple. He tosses the core to a waiting rat, who scurries off into the shadows, satisfied. His feet swing, his eyes watching the boats. He knows every name carved into their hulls, every face that tends them. He dreams of someday owning his own, not a grand vessel, no, just a small, strong one with oars that listen to him, and a sail that smells like salt and sun. Further down, two riverfolk are mending a net. Quiet work, patient work. One ties the knots, fingers nimble even in the morning cold. The other smokes a pipe and speaks in a soft rhythm, telling a story that drifts as gently as the smoke from his lips, a tale of a swan that turned into a woman, of a fisherman who fell in love with a ghost, of a treasure buried beneath the fifth piling of London Bridge, guarded by the bones of a Roman soldier. The boy on the crate listens without seeming to. So do the rats, and maybe, just maybe, the river listens too. The water has changed with the hour, still calm, but shimmering now with that early gold. It reflects not just the lanterns but the rooftops, the faces, the world itself, everything doubled, dreamed twice. A barge glides by, pulled by men on the shore, walking slowly with thick ropes over their shoulders. They don't speak, they just move with the weight, knowing the rhythm, step by step, as seagulls drift overhead in lazy circles. Someone begins to sing, not loudly, a work song, low and steady. It isn't clear who started it, but one by one, voices join in. It rises like mist from the river, tired, soulful, full of longing and life, not for performance, just to pass the time. And the Thames, old as time, carries the sound gently downstream, holding it in its current like a memory. Everything moves slowly here. Everything softens. Even the city. Even time. Even you. The fog rolls in, as if on cue. It doesn't rush. It arrives with purpose, curling around chimney stacks, slipping down alleyways, and kissing the rooftops of Southwark like a quiet guest who knows the house well. By now the river Sip's mirror begins to blur. The reflections smudge like watercolors, lanterns bleeding into the mist, shadows stretching soft and long. The bridge is half vanished, the far shore barely there, and yet everything feels closer, wrapped in cotton, swaddled in breath. You hear the church bell again, not loud, muffled by the fog but clear, somehow, as if it rings just behind your ear. 1, 2, then silence. It doesn't need to say more. Beneath the bridge, a ferryman sits in his boat. Still as a statue, he wears a wide-brimmed hat, the tip of his pipe glowing like a firefly. He doesn't row, he waits. No passengers this hour, no voices, just mist, and the soft creak of his oarlock shifting in the damp. Behind him, the warehouses loom, huge and silent, outlines rather than buildings. Somewhere inside, a crate topples, maybe a rat, maybe a ghost. Southwark has many of both, and neither are in a hurry. You pass by the bear garden, the old arena long since abandoned, now taken by weeds and quiet. Some say at night, if you listen closely, you can still hear the roar of the crowd or the growl of something deeper, something long caged and long forgotten, but not tonight. Tonight, even ghosts respect the fog. A drunk stumbles through an alley, singing off-key to no one. His voice disappears into the haze like smoke into the sky. A dog barks once, then silence again. A bakery opens early. The smell of bread cuts through the damp, warm, grounding. A man in a cloak stands outside, hands cupped near his mouth, blowing steam. He nods at the baker. No words, just that nod. That's enough here. The ferryman finally moves. Slowly, gently. His oar dips into the black water with barely a splash. The boat vanishes into the mist, carrying no one. Or perhaps someone you didn't see. hard to tell in Southwark fog. Somewhere above, a rooster crows. A second answers. Dawn is near, and the city, even in its shadow, remembers how to breathe. So do you. The fog thins, just a little. Enough to reveal silhouettes. The arches of London Bridge stretch like the ribs of some sleeping beast. Stone, wet, timeless. Above it, timber buildings balance like crooked teeth, leaning slightly, their windows shut tight against the chill. But behind the shutters, candles flicker, footsteps creak overhead, sleepy murmurs leak into the morning. The city isn't set to wake yet, but it isn't sleeping either. It's turning over, adjusting its weight, exhaling steam through every chimney. A horse sips hooves clop slowly on the cobbles. The first cart of the day makes its way across the bridge, crates of turnips and onions bumping with each jolt. The driver sips something hot from a flask, doesn't rush. No one does. A boy with a basket skips behind him, dropping bread at doorsteps, whistling low. Each note echoes faintly down the narrow passages between buildings. It's not a happy tune, not sad either, just something to keep the fog company. You pause halfway across the bridge. The river below is moving again, slow ripples now, like the Thames has finally woken and decided to stretch. The lanterns along the docks burn lower, their oil thinning into glassy flickers. Across the bank, fishwives begin to shout. Not urgently, more like a ritual. The start of another day. Fresh eel, cod, fine and fat. Even this early, even in the fog, life begins to collect, like dew on a web. A constable stands at the far end of the bridge, arms folded, watching the flow. Not for crime, just watching, holding presence. His boots steam, his breath curls up into his mustache. You nod. He nods back. No words pass. A bell rings in the distance, not a church bell, but the little silver one that hangs from a coffee seller's cart. The scent follows it, bitter, earthy, rich, the kind of smell that invites you to keep walking, keep listening, keep breathing. The sun hasn't yet quite broken the horizon, but the dark is losing its grip. Birds begin to chirp, high in the eaves, overhanging the water. Even the crows keep their voices soft this morning. And so you walk, slowly. Your feet don't hurry. They understand this rhythm now, the pace of a city, learning to rise. You reach the far side, and the gate of the bridge closes gently behind you. No clang, no lock, just the hum of a world waking without alarm. You follow the river's bend, where the buildings grow fewer and the silence grows thicker. A narrow path hugs the waterline, slick with algae, stones rounded by centuries of tides. It curves beneath a collapsed pier, just bones now, wooden ribs jutting into the mist. And beyond it, an archway, half drowned. Hidden behind a curtain of ivy and shadow, it stops a mouth, not of stone or brick, but of time itself. You step through. The air changes immediately. Colder, denser. It smells like iron and forgotten parchment. The echo of your steps returns to you faster here, like the walls are too close, too alive. You're underground now, though the river is still with you, flowing just beneath the floor, behind the walls, above your head. You hear it, whispering, like breath through ancient teeth. This place is older than London, older than language. A tunnel, a crypt, a chamber that was once a temple, perhaps, or maybe a sewer. Who can say? What matters is this. The river remembers. Along the walls, strange carvings glow faintly with phosphorescent moss. Symbols, spirals, an eye, a serpent, a crown submerged in waves. You pause at a widening in the path, a small circular chamber where water seeps up from the cracks and pools in a shallow basin. There, someone has left offerings. A bone comb, a feather tied with string. A child sips marble, blue as sky. You kneel, not because you believe, but because belief lingers here, thick in the air, as if this place still listens. Suddenly, a noise behind you. You turn. It sits only a rat, fat and fearless. It scurries past, tail twitching, vanishing into the dark. Still, the moment hangs. Because for one breath, one long breath, you felt something watching. Not with malice, but with memory. You press onward. The tunnel narrows again, then rises, slick stairs, moss growing between each tread. And as you climb, the air shifts once more. Lighter now. Fresher. You emerge into the morning light, into reeds and river grass, and the distant call of gulls. You steer past through the river-set's secret mouth, and come out the other side, changed. The sky is a pale, washed canvas. The sun, shy behind clouds, spills a milky light across the water. You sit by the river's edge now, on a wooden bench carved long ago by quiet hands. It creaks faintly beneath you, not with age, but with presence. The Thames moves gently today, not fast, not loud, just enough to remind the city, I am still here, and I have always been. On the opposite bank, the chimneys yawn, releasing thin plumes of smoke that drift into the soft wind. Fishermen check their nets. A child tosses a crust of bread into the shallows, laughing as ducks chase the morsels. A man in a wide hat hums a song you heard in a dream once. Behind you, someone opens a window with care. The clink of porcelain, the scent of tea. A new day, gently folded open like a letter from a friend. Boats creak against their moorings, ropes straining, then relaxing. The dock workers move with a rhythm that feels almost rehearsed. Not rushed, not idle, just right. And the river keeps watching. You follow its gaze upstream, past the arches of a stone bridge, past the spires and towers softened by mist. It flows not toward the sea, but toward everything. Toward every story this city has ever told. You close your eyes. You don't fall asleep, but you rest. Deeply. The kind of rest that comes not from exhaustion, but from understanding. Because now you know, the River Thames isn't just water. It sets memory, it simps rhythm. It stops the city, sets heartbeat, and its lullaby. And long after the world changes, after the cobbles fade, after the boats rot, after the lights go out, the river will still be here, singing soft work songs, reflecting the lanterns of whoever dares to dream beside it, carrying time itself, one ripple at a time. The stone wall is warm beneath your fingers, worn smooth by years, by weather, by leaning hands. You press gently, and a wooden gate creaks open. The garden awaits. Not a grand place, not planned, but living, fragrant and free. Herbs stretch upward. Thyme, rosemary, lavender. Their scents rise into the air like whispers. Beneath them, the soil is soft and black, speckled with dew. Somewhere nearby, a wooden wheelbarrow rests against a tree. A clay jug sweats with cool water. And nestled among the leaves, a cat sleeps, tail flicking once, then still. Bees drift lazily from one bloom to the next. Not hurried, not lost. They know this place. A bench stands beneath an ivy-draped arch. You sit and breathe in the green. Everything here feels like it's waiting, but not anxiously. Like the garden already knows what time is for. You listen. A robin sings just once, then listens back. The wind rustles mint leaves near your feet. Somewhere behind the wall, a bell tolls in the distance. But here, inside, time does not toll. It blossoms. And the garden keeps growing, whether you notice or not. The courtyard is square, enclosed on all sides by cloisters and carved stone. But within, a soft wilderness. A painter sips dream. Marigolds glow like embers. White violets trail along a worn brick path. A climbing rose clutches an old archway, blooming in a hush of pale blush and cream. No two petals the same. The sunlight moves slowly here. Like it, too, is resting. Each hour brings a shift in shadow. Each beam brushes another flower to life. In the center stands a fountain. Low, round, old. Water spills gently over its mossy rim, the sound barely louder than a whisper. You dip your fingers in. Cool. Alive. It smells faintly of iron and leaves. Children once ran here. You can almost hear them. Their laughter echoing off stone, chasing pigeons between the columns. Now only a few footsteps remain. A quiet caretaker perhaps, or an old nun with slow steps and a watering jug. But the flowers do not mind. They stretch and nod in the wind. They have seen ages pass and still bloom again. You sit on a sun-warmed bench, carved with initials long forgotten. Your body softens. A bee floats past your knee. A single petal falls from above, lands silently beside you. And everything smells like summer, even in spring. The field begins just beyond the edge of town. No fences. Just worn footpaths, wild grass, and air that smells of damp earth and sweet hay. Children run barefoot here. Not always, but often. Their shoes lie in heaps by the edge, forgotten in the rush to chase. And what do they chase? Geese. Plump, feathered, honking bundles of chaos. The birds flap and waddle, making great drama of the pursuit. Yet, they never truly flee. This dance is one they sip known for generations. A boy stumbles, laughing. A girl leaps, arms wide like wings. A toddler claps from the edge, too small to join but giddy to watch. Their shouts carry across the common, startling crows from a nearby oak. The tree is ancient, a crooked thing with knots like eyes. Its branches hold rope swings and forgotten kites. In the far corner, a woman kneels beside a bundle of herbs. She's teaching her daughter to tell mint from nettle, how to pluck, how to dry. Their voices are soft, shaped like lullabies. Near them, a cluster of older men sits on low stools. Dice clack. Tankards thud. Someone strums a lute and hums a song without words. Butterflies flit. A kite soars. Somewhere, a dog barks with joy and rolls in something foul. You lie back in the grass. The blades tickle your neck. Above, the clouds drift slow, like sheep with no shepherd. A goose passes close. It eyes you, tilts its head, then honks, offended, and waddles away. And you smile. Because this place, open, unruly, golden in the afternoon light, asks nothing of you. It simply lets you breathe. The door to the herb garden is wooden. Its frame is warped by time, its hinges groan in protest. But it opens, always, with a gentle push. Inside, the air changes. It sits still, fragrant, thick with rosemary and memory. Low beds stretch in tidy rows, thyme clusters like green lace. Sage leaves shimmer silver under the morning sun. A cat dozes on the wall, belly to the sky. It twitches in sleep, chasing a dream mouse among lavender stems. At the center of it all, her, the gardener. She moves like someone who has always known what things need, not just plants but people. She trims the rue with steady hands, checks the chamomile for beetles, tends to the comfrey where it grows near the well. She hums as she works, a tune with no words, only warmth. Children sometimes peek through cracks in the stone, curious, watching. She never scolds them. Sometimes she'll pass a stem of mint through the wall, or a handful of calendula petals. Take this to your mother, she sit'll whisper. Boil it with honey, it'll help the cough. No one knows how old she is. She has outlasted abbots and mayors, storms and seasons. Some say she sits part of the garden now, rooted, enduring. In spring she teaches. Teen girls come, nervous and shy, to learn the ways of salves and teas. They leave braver, with fingers stained green and eyes bright. In winter, she waits, feeding the soil with quiet prayers, mulching stories into the roots. And always, the garden listens. It blooms not for beauty, but for healing. A place where pain softens and breath deepens. You sit on the bench near the rosemary. The sun warms your back. She nods to you, not as a visitor, but as one of her own. You stay a while longer, because here, time bends, and everything, even you, begins to grow again. She arrives with the fog. A wooden cart creaks over cobblestones. Its wheels wear the dust of distant lanes. The flower seller. No one knows where she comes from, exactly. But she sits there every morning, at the edge of the commons, by the sun-warmed wall, just where the bees gather first. Her cart is a quilt of colour. Buckets of blooms, freshly picked. Foxglove and feverfew. Cornflowers like drops of sky. Marigolds that smell like memory. She doesn't yet call out. Doesn't need to. The flowers do the talking. They draw people in, slowly, dreamily. Children skip up with coins in hand. Young lovers fumble over their choices. Old widows linger longest, their hands trembling as they touch soft petals. She watches each face, chooses blooms carefully, not always what's asked for. To the boy with a scraped knee, she gives yarrow. To the baker with a furrowed brow, chamomile. To the widow, lilies of the valley, and a nod that says, I remember too. No one knows her name, but they say she speaks to the flowers, listens to them whisper stories, knows which heart needs which stem. A curious girl once asked her why she never sold roses. She only smiled. They don't need selling. People already know what they mean. By midday, the cart is lighter, the commons busier, but she remains still, watching. And when the church bell tolls noon, she packs up, always with one bundle set aside, left quietly by the base of the old statue. A tribute, a promise, a secret, and then she vanishes, back down the lane, into the mist that brought her. You stand there long after she's gone, holding a stem of forget-me-not, and somehow you don't feel forgotten at all. London after dark is not lifeless. It exhales softly, through chimneys, through cellar doors, through narrow alleys where puddles reflect stars. The cobblestones are slick with dew. The air holds a hush, not empty, but expectant. A stillness that listens. Then, a soft shuffle, leather boots, and the click of a brass lantern. He appears from the mist. The night watchman. Cloak draped over shoulders, hat low, over tired eyes. He walks the lanes with purpose, but never in haste. His lantern glows like a quiet star, bobbing gently as he moves. Click, step, hush. Click, step, hush. The rhythm of safety. He pauses near the bakery, checks the shutter, draws a mark on his parchment, then moves on, like a shadow with a purpose. Behind a curtain, a baby cries once, then settles. A mother exhales. Safe. Further down he passes the apothecary. The smell of lavender and ash still clings to the door. The sign sways once in the breeze, then stills. Above, windows are dark, but not all. In one, a candle flickers. A student perhaps, or a poet, or someone simply not yet ready to let go of the day. The watchman does not disturb them. He only nods, as if to say, I see you, keep going, I'll guard the rest. He checks the alley behind the inn, where shadows pool deepest, where whispers once curled like smoke. Nothing tonight, just a crate, and a cat, and the echo of silence. He moves again. His breath makes ghosts in the air. The fog wraps around him like an old friend. And somewhere above, unseen behind clouds, the stars begin their long watch too. The city rests, but not alone. Its dreams are guarded. One lantern, one man, one night at a time. Far in the distance, a bell tower stirs. Dong. It sumps the first toll of one a-fit clock. The sound rolls low and deep, cutting through the night like a slow breath. The watchman stops beneath a gaslight. Its flame dances softly, orange, steady, alive. He listens. Dong. Again. Each chime is a heartbeat, marking the slow rhythm of the sleeping city. Above him, windows remain shut. Chimneys release faint trails of warmth. Even the dogs do not bark at this hour. He reaches into his coat, pulls out a folded paper, unfolds it, carefully. His route. A list of alleys, gates, names. He traces a gloved finger down the page, then tucks it back into his pocket. The bell tolls again. Dong. Somewhere nearby, a raven caws once, then disappears into the trees by the churchyard. The streets begin to narrow now. Brick closes in. Shadows stretch longer. The fog, too, grows thicker. It pools near drains. It curls around iron fences. It hushes the steps of the man who walks without hurry. In this part of London, the city's bones show more. Worn stone steps, broken window panes, wrought iron gates rusting in silence. But the watchman walks here just the same. He stops by a stable, checks the lock. He nods to the sleeping horses, whose slow exhales puff steam into the air. He adjusts the lantern, wipes a droplet of moisture from its glass, then moves again. Dong. One last toll, and with it, a silence even deeper than before. 1 o'clock. Half the night has passed, half still to come. But the city, she sleeps on, and the lantern glows on. The watchman sips, boots strike stone. 1, 2, 3, steady, measured, echoes weaving through alleys, long forgotten by the sun. He moves through Milk Lane, a narrow vein of cobbles, damp with mist. Old market stalls are covered in canvas, bowing like tired backs under the weight of night. Overhead, laundry lines stretch like ghostly wires between crooked windows. A single stocking flutters in the breeze. The watchman stops at the intersection with Paternoster Row, looks down both ends. Nothing stirs. Even the rats have tucked themselves away. The fog lifts slightly here, revealing a figure in the distance. A statue of a knight, sword drawn, watching endlessly. The watchman tips his head in silent greeting. A cat darts across the street, silent and purposeful, tail curled like a question mark. The watchman continues. He passes a shuttered bakery. Its windows are dusted with flour on the inside, a sign of the baker sips early rise ahead. He glances upward. A tower clock, hands at 1:15. Time slows here. Not frozen, just breathing deeper. He takes a right into Candlewick Street. The name once meant something. The air still smells faintly of wax and tallow. A small chapel stands at the end. The stars above flicker faintly, but the lantern is lantern. He places a hand on the cold stone wall, just to feel something solid beneath the night. Somewhere behind him, a window creaks. Someone stirs. No light is lit. Striking stone. Stone that sips known centuries of footsteps, of souls, of stories whispered and forgotten, and yet still here, still waiting, still watching. Like him, the watchman turns down a narrow passage, a hidden artery known only to those who walk the city deeply, between two leaning buildings, just wide enough for one man. The walls are close, breathing damp air into his coat. He moves carefully. This is Candle Alley, once a shortcut for monks, now mostly forgotten, except by the night. Halfway down, he sees it, a flicker, a soft amber glow leaking from beneath a door with no sign, no handle, only hinges rusted like old blood. The watchman pauses. Not fear, curiosity. Inside, he knows, an old woman still tends a flame. Not a tavern, not a chapel, something else. She stops been there longer than the fire. Some say she was a healer, some say a seer. He sips, never asked. He just nods toward the door. Always. And tonight, like always, the flicker remains steady. Her way of saying, the city still lives. He exits Candle Alley and enters again into broader streets. Bread Street, Honey Lane. Names that echo life, even when silent. He sees another watchman sips lantern far off. A distant glint through the mist. They do not call out. They never do. Two flames. Two men. Keeping the silence. He passes a low archway where someone has left offerings. Rosemary. A crust of bread. A tiny wooden carving of a dove. Not for the living. Not for the dead. For peace. The kind of peace that comes only at night. When the world forgets to shout. He continues. And as he does, he hums. A low sound. Barely a tune. Not even a song. Just enough to tell the stones, I am still here. The watchman steps onto Cheapside. The bells are quiet. But the steeples stand, still guardians of a sleeping city. Above him, the stars sharpen, piercing pinholes in a sky washed in soot and moonlight. He tilts his head. No clouds tonight. Just clarity. There steps Orion, shouldering his belt. Cassiopeia, trapped in her throne. He wonders, briefly, if the same constellations shine over Rome, over Jerusalem, over a farm in Sussex. He keeps walking, each footstep softened by centuries of stone. He passes beneath the spire of St. Mary Mullerbow. It leans slightly, like a man listening. He stops, listens too. Not for danger, not for footsteps, but for something else, something higher. Then, a hush, deeper than silence. The wind stills. Even the rats rest. For a moment, the entire city seems to pause, as if London herself is listening to the stars. He moves again, drawn toward Cornhill. There, above another chapel, a single star glows brighter than the rest. Not large, not loud, just persistent. He remembers an old saying, whispered to him as a boy. The stars stay because they remember who we were. And tonight, they do. They remember the bakers, the lamplighters, the children born in silence, and the watchmen who hum to themselves as they guard the sleeping stones. He walks on, letting the stars follow. A pale blue seeps into the sky. The stars fade, not in shame, but in grace, like quiet guests slipping out before breakfast. The watchman turns toward the river. He hears it before he sees it. A low, steady breath. The Thames never sleeps, only slows. He passes a bakery. A thin curl of smoke rises. Someone has begun again. The shutters on a tailor-sip's shop rattle open. A sleepy apprentice peeks out, yawns, then disappears inside. The cobblestones feel warmer now. A cart clatters in the distance. Milk, maybe, or bread. He sees a child, barefoot and blinking, carrying a pail of water with both hands. They nod at each other. No words, just understanding. The watchman stops at his post, the same post he stood at since the plague, since the riots, since the frost of '87. And now, another night has passed. Another one kept safe. He hangs his lantern on the hook. The flame trembles for a moment, then dies. A breeze flutters his cloak. Somewhere, a lark begins to sing. Clear, high, the sound of something new. The city is stirring, not with alarms or horns, but with small movements. A broom sweeping, a kettle singing, a mother sips whisper as she wakes her baby. He looks back only once, at the shadowed streets behind him. Then he steps into the sunrise, and the city breathes in, ready to begin again. And now, dear listener, the streets of old London are quiet once more. The lanterns have been dimmed, the footsteps faded, and the city, ancient and enduring, sleeps beneath a softening sky. Let your breath slow, like the hush of midnight cobblestones. Let your thoughts drift, like fog along the rooftops. You walked through time tonight, through candlelit alleys, beneath silent stars, beside a watchman who asked nothing but presence. There sits no need to chase morning. It will come, as it always does. For now, rest where you are. Let the city sleep in you, and you in it. Good night, and may your dreams walk gently through the dark,